He's been in the league for a long time. If you're even a casual fan, you've probably heard of his name here and there, but don't really know much about him, cause he was simply a role player. At least that's what he was before. A good player, no doubt, but did anyone really expect him to put up all-star caliber numbers and double his scoring from the previous season? Well, that's what Jerami Grant is doing. In a season where we've seen so many players shocking the world and exceeding expectations, there were always hints in the past where we could see them doing that and improving to that level. But for Grant? No, that was never the case. His jump from being a solid role player into a legitimate first option and all-star caliber talent was so random and out of nowhere. Nobody could have predicted this, and there were no hints whatsoever that he was even capable of leading a team like this. Not bad for a second-round pick. However, let's take a deeper look into it. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today let's talk about Jerami Grant's shocking rise to stardom. What caused this? Is this actually the player he truly is? Or is he simply benefiting from the situation he's in? And did we ever see him have this potential in years past and never realized it? First, let's take a look back at Jerami's recent seasons. Prior to Detroit, he spent some years in Philly, but his most noteworthy years were in OKC. We recognized him as the third or fourth option, and he was acquired in late 2016, initially as a replacement for Kevin Durant, although a very weak replacement. In 3 seasons there, he would occasionally have a rare 20-point game, but for the most part, he was, at best, the third option, usually the fourth or fifth option. Even if he wanted more touches, he couldn't get them. Westbrook was the team's leader. Paul George was the second option. They had a season with Melo as well, and their preferred big man was Steven Adams, the primary pick-and-roll finisher. Position-wise, Grant was a tweener, slotting in mainly at power forward, sometimes small forward, and over the years, he developed a surprisingly decent three-point shot. Overall, his jump shot was a weak point of his career up until 2018-ish, where he all of a sudden started taking more threes and hitting them. He hit nearly 40% of them. This was the biggest shock, and it was long before he even came to Detroit. He was always known to be an athletic finisher at the rim and a solid defender with long arms and great lateral quickness. But this three-point shot he developed was the key to success, as it brought his versatility to the next level. The Thunder even signed him to a very reasonable contract, 3 years, $27 million. Not much, considering how much he's improved in such a short time. There's a lot to criticize about the Thunder's front office decisions, and especially with their history of trades. But there's no questioning their player development process. It's always been good. Grant was their next project, the guy who theoretically was Durant's replacement. And he fit very well with the team. To be fair, he fits well on any team. Due to his rapid improvements and great contract value, I thought he'd be in OKC for a long time. But he got traded shortly after. To Denver, where he continued where he left off, this time as a complementary piece to Jokic and Murray. In fact, he played very well alongside Jokic, contrasting his slower, sluggish movement with his more dynamic, athletic and quick movement. While he did get some flack for saying that he was glad he was leaving a sinking ship in OKC, he also praised the team as well. I got a lot better in Oklahoma City, whether it was my shooting, ability to read the game, slow things down, driving, staying on balance, things like that, just a lot. I definitely think it helped me get to where I am. Fast forward to late 2020, the Detroit Pistons were in a bad spot, like how they've always been for the past decade. There was uncertainty surrounding Blake Griffin as his recovery from knee surgery has gone slower than anticipated. Plus, who knows how good he'll be when he comes back. Because of Griffin's unreliability, this prompted the Pistons to take a chance and sign the 26-year-old Jerami Grant. Grant would be acquired in a sign-and-trade, inking a 3-year, $60 million contract in Detroit. At first, it seemed like an overpay for a guy who just averaged 12 points a game previously, but Grant quickly proved that it was not an overpay. Right from the get-go, he was slotted in as the starting small forward, a position that he wasn't too comfortable playing before. But over the last few years, he showed he's capable of playing out on the perimeter, and with a much better jump shot, Grant felt he could do it. In fact, he was quite confident in himself. Before going to Detroit, Grant was actually in a very good situation. He had the choice to stay in Denver.
Yeah, there's no other way to say it. The Denver Nuggets were blindsided by what happened Friday night when Jerami Grant decided to leave Denver for Detroit. 3-year, $60 million deal. What's crazy is that the Nuggets, I'm told, the Nuggets offered Jerami Grant the exact same contract, same amount of money, same amount of length, and yet Jerami Grant opted to go to Detroit. This shook the Nuggets. They were not prepared for this.
He was on a young Nugget squad with a great future ahead, and he could have stayed there and remained a role player while growing alongside his teammates. But instead, he chased his dream and strived to become the leader on his own team, even if the Pistons were going in the complete opposite direction. Initially, this decision is perplexing. When asked about why he wanted to leave Denver, Grant explained, "It was tough. I was in a situation where I was comfortable. I loved my teammates. I loved the organization. It was a lot of things that made me teeter between my decision. But at the end of the day, I think I made the best decision for me in my career. My growth as a player is extremely important to me. This was just a challenge. The challenge kind of intrigued me. I made my decision and I'm happy with it." As of this video, he's averaging excellent numbers across the board. Perhaps the biggest surprise has been his three-point shooting. In years past, we've seen him shoot sporadically, but on a much lower volume. Now, he's shooting a whopping 7 threes a game on a respectable percentage. He maintained his three-point efficiency while increasing his volume by a lot. That's super impressive for a guy who, for the first time in his NBA career, he's the primary option. He made this transition very well. While his overall scoring efficiency dipped a little bit due to his increased role, he's still pretty good at choosing his spots. Approximately 83% of his attempts come either from the three-point line or within 10 feet of the basket. We always knew he was great at finishing, but now he's proving he can do it at a much higher volume with opposing defenses actually paying attention to him. He's still hitting 66% of his shots at the rim. He's also very smart at choosing when to shoot threes, preferring spot-ups and catch-and-shoot chances as opposed to creating his own shot off the dribble, which isn't a strong suit of his. 86% of his threes are assisted, which reinforces that, although that's actually lower compared to years past. Regardless, Grant has mastered Morey ball, and over time, I can see those long twos and mid-range shots being completely eliminated from his game. Honestly though, overall, his game hasn't changed much at all if you look at it. When it comes to shot selection and how he's getting his points, it's all very similar to years past. The only difference has been his usage rate, which hovered around 16% for his career, but leaped to over 26% in Detroit. So judging by these numbers, it looks like he had this in him all along. It's just now he finally gets the chance to show it on a team that desperately needs him. Of course, this begs the question, isn't he just putting up good stats on a bad team? Do his numbers really even matter? I mean, yeah, he's leading his own team for the first time in his NBA career, but it's not like the Pistons are getting anywhere. Well, I don't really like when people say, oh, I mean, he's just putting up good stats on a bad team. I think if you put up good stats on any NBA team, it's impressive. The problem isn't him, it's everyone else. The Pistons suck. Their roster has very little hope for the future. Their other options are an aging Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose, both of whom are severely washed up. Josh Jackson, the once prominent prospect, hasn't shown he's gotten any better since leaving Phoenix. The bright side is, Grant has become a star talent, and the Pistons have some sort of future now with him at the helm. The downside is, he's literally their only bright side. It's upsetting they traded away Luke Kennard, who looked very good in his last season with the Pistons, and made noticeable improvements each year. But I guess they didn't want to sign him to an extension, even though he was their only young prospect. What's even worse is that the Pistons are projected to be over the salary cap until 2022. For a team to be this bad with so little young talent to develop and so many washed-up players, it's hilarious and sad how bad of a position they're in. And all of it is their own fault. Bad management, questionable player development, bad signings, and contracts. I mean, there's really nothing else to say. While Grant has been absolutely phenomenal, he won't have any impact on the rest of the NBA, considering the Pistons aren't going anywhere. To an extent, you could say he's wasting away his best years in Detroit. But these years in Detroit, it's also the only place where he's given this chance. Despite the lack of team success, he's making the most of it. And at the very least, if he keeps up this play a few years down the road, he'll be in for a fat payday. Plus, I'm excited to see where he could lead the Pistons. Maybe a future playoff berth is not out of the question. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Jerami Grant's rise to stardom. Did you see this coming when the Pistons signed him? Do you think this is just a one-season wonder? Where do you foresee Grant's career heading towards? Let me know in the comments, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.